Quite possibly the first computer programmer, Lady Ada Lovelace was the daughter of the famous Romantic poet Lord Byron. At the height of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, her mother pushed her into the male-dominated fields of science and mathematics, where she was mentored by the father of the computer, Charles Babbage. Despite this, Ada was nearly just a footnote in her father's life story. Ada Lovelace was born on December 10, 1815, to the philandering Lord Byron and the strictly religious Annabella Milbank, as the poet's only legitimate child. Considering Annabella was analytical and Byron was a romantic eccentric known to drink out of a human skull and pursue scandalous love affairs, including with his own half-sister, it's not surprising that the marriage failed. Byron would leave when Ada was only 5 weeks old. Deeply bitter and resentful, Annabella covered his portrait and forbade Ada from ever looking at it. 4 months later, Byron would leave England, never to return, and would die when Ada was 8 years old while fighting in Greece. While Ada never met him, she remained fascinated with him and his poetry for her entire life. In light of her husband's life and personality, Annabella decided to steer her daughter away from such pursuits. She fully believed Lord Byron was mentally ill with his volatile, poetic insanity, as she called it. She saw to it that Ada's education revolved around mathematics and science instead of anything remotely poetic. It was an unusual course of study for a young woman in British Victorian society. As a young girl and teenager, Ada was mostly isolated and didn't spend a great deal of time with her mother. Still, Annabella was committed to her daughter's education and employed some of the greatest intellectuals of the time as tutors, and a bizarre lesson on self-control. Ada would be required to lie still for various lengths of time in an attempt to ward off turning out like her father. Annabella's focus appeared to pay off. By the time she was 12, Ada was a very bright student and also became obsessed with birds and flying. At one point, she proposed a new device, essentially a steam-powered wing horse to enable humans to fly. Think steampunk Pegasus. However, in between intellectual projects, Ada battled illness. She frequently complained of headaches that obscured her vision. Then in 1829, she contracted measles, a common childhood disease. She was kept on continual bed rest for a year and temporarily disabled. In 1831, at the age of 16, she regained her ability to walk with crutches. By the next year, she was well enough to be presented at court with the rest of the young women of her social class, and became a popular belle, charming everyone with her brilliant mind. With the Industrial Revolution in full swing by the time she was a teenager, Ada was perfectly poised to take advantage of the era. She had access to intellectuals, investors, and powerful people because of her position in society. Within this perfect storm, Ada met Charles Babbage in 1833 at a party he hosted. During the evening, Babbage unveiled an invention designed to perform calculations and print them out into tables. Most were not impressed. Ada, however, was intrigued. Her appreciation and enthusiasm must have struck a chord as the two became lifelong friends. Sadly, the invention fell through, but Babbage came up with a better machine, the analytical engine. It is considered to be the first programmable, general-purpose computer with the basic structure, the same as modern computers but on a much bigger scale. As Ada was now his protégé, he showed her the plans and she eagerly set about assisting him. However, only a small prototype would be constructed in Babbage's lifetime. It was during this time that Ada would publish a paper that gives credence to her title as the first computer programmer. In it, she explained how the engine could be programmed to calculate Bernoulli numbers. This was an algorithm designed to be carried out by a machine, making it the first computer program. Further, Ada described how codes could be created for the device to handle letters and symbols. She also theorized for the machine to repeat a series of instructions, also known as looping, which is still used today. Ada would also surpass her mentor in understanding the analytical engine's potential. Babbage viewed the device bound by numbers, but Ada saw that numbers could represent more than quantities. Some point to this moment in an 1843 paper as the shift into modern computing. However, all was not well. As Babbage lacked the grace with which Ada dealt with politicians, she suggested that she take over the marketing while he focused on building it. He said no. It is likely that he saw her suggestion less as help and more as her taking away some of his control. Despite this seeming success on her mother's part, Ada was still Lord Byron's daughter. Though she followed convention by marrying and having 3 children, she also flirted with scandal. Spending time with men who were not her husband led to rumors about her having affairs. In addition, after a bout with cholera, she had problems with asthma and her digestion. Doctors prescribed a powerful opiate, which altered her personality and caused mood swings and hallucinations. And then in 1851, Ada began gambling on horses, an old family vice. While she might have been trying to raise funds for the analytical engine, no one knows her reasons. We do know that her bets went horribly wrong. She might have devised a mathematical strategy for betting, but it obviously didn't work. In a failed bet, she owed £500,000. In response, she pawned off some of the family jewels. Soon after, in 1852, Ada fell gravely ill and took to her bed. She died slowly of uterine cancer on November 27, 1852. She was 36 years old, the exact age of her father at his death. Her last wish surely angered her mother. She wanted to be buried next to her father, and she was. After more than 100 years, Ada's work was rediscovered by scientist Alan Turing during the Second World War. Turing was equally fascinated by the same things as she was, and his work would lead to building the machine that deciphered cryptic messages sent by Axis forces. Though his work began before he read her notes on the analytical engine, he was greatly influenced by them. This led to a book on her work in 1953 and a new military programming language in the 1970s to supersede all the smaller separate ones. It was named Ada in her honor and is still in use today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want. There's always more history.